This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
I want to make it clear that the views expressed by our hosts are not considered the official stance of MBR Views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Tracer Round Podcast. A tracer round is a type of ammunition designed to help visually track the path of rounds fired. Tracers show where you need to adjust or redirect fire. Join Army veteran Sergeant First Class Terry Lynch for Tracer Rounds, the first ever podcast of its type. Whether it be military, music, sports, politics, education, relationships, or gender issues, no target is off limits or out of bounds. Are you on target? Does your fire need to be recalibrated? Whether you adjust fire or fire for effect, tune in to Tracer Rounds, where the range is always open and there are rounds going down range.
Hi, welcome to Tracer Rounds. I'm your host, Terry, and tonight with me in studio, I have AJ Johnson. I was going to save his title, but I'm going to go ahead and give his title, and then I'll let him tell you what that is exactly in case you don't know. But he's a veteran service officer for Johnson County, Texas. And welcome, AJ.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you.
So I was going to ask you, thank you for being here. So I was going to ask you a little bit about your background. I know you were in the military. So can you tell us a little bit about your service, where you served, what your MOS was, some places you've been, that kind of thing?
So I just retired last year, 23 years, E7 Master Sergeant in the Air Force. I did 10 years on active duty, and I finished up my career with the Air Force Reserves right out here at Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth. It used to be Carswell Airfield, the Joint Reserve Base out here in Fort Worth. So I did 23 years. I started out security forces, which was a 3PO X1, I guess, if you want to go by we call them AFSCs in the Air Force, kind of like, so the same thing as the MOS for the Army.
Yes.
So I was a cop, did that for 18 years, 10 years on active duty. Then I went to the reserves and was also a cop down here at Carswell. And then I actually got a special duty assignment. So I applied to Airmen and Family Readiness and ended up managing the TAP, the Transition Assistance Program. So I was the TAP manager for the entire 301st Fighter Wing for the base. I guess y'all went away from it. The Army used to call it Soldier for Life. So basically TAP. So I did that on active orders for 3 years, and then I had to kind of pass the torch, pass the baton. And then I retired last June with 23 total years in the service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you. So where have you been assigned? You said you spent 10 years active. So what posts or bases, and not posts because Army's post, but what bases were you at?
Well, I was at my first base was McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas, which is right there in Wichita, Kansas. Population about 300,000. I'm sure it's grown since then. So I was in we call them Mobility Command, Air Mobility Command, or another Miss Christmas, like we used to call it. And from there, I did my first 4 years, and then I actually got assignment to Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado, right there in Aurora, pretty much, which was Space Command.
Wow.
So I finished up my active duty time at Buckley then I left active duty, and then had a little like 9-month break in service. And then moved down here to Texas and joined the reserves down at Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth. So those are my home station assignments, and I did 4 tours, so I've got about 2.5 years in the Middle East total. 2 pretty cool easy assignments, and 2 not so easy assignments. My last tour was 11 months, recon and combat patrols outside the wire with the 4th ID and the Army and all that fun stuff that Air Force cops never thought we'd be doing. But 9/11 kind of changed all that. So I did outside the wire patrols for a good amount of my time while I was in southern Iraq. So my last tour, yes, it ended up being 11 months total from the time I left, with all the training and then getting in country. I had a buddy that did a remote for 12 months, and I beat him home by a month. So, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. That's a legacy of service for sure.
Yeah, I don't feel like I was necessarily qualified to do what I did at the time, but it just opportunity presents itself, and you just never know, especially in the military, you never know where you're going to end up. And me as a security forces member doing stuff that I never thought I would ever be doing, right there side by side with the Army on patrol, looking for bad things and bad people. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. You definitely were a blessing to those you served with, I'm sure.
I try to be. So,
what's your favorite memory in uniform? What would be the thing you just go, man, if I had to pick one thing, what would that be?
What was my favorite? What did you say? My favorite.
What would be your favorite memory in uniform? What one event or one assignment or what one thing would you just go, man, that made it all worth it?
I've got a couple. I really don't have a favorite. The most recent was my retirement. I gave my retirement speech out at the 301st Fighter Wing Airmen and Family Readiness. And having my son come up to me at the end of that retirement speech, and he was crying, gave me a big hug at the end of that retirement speech. I'll never forget that moment. That's one of my favorite moments. And it's funny how it happened at my the very end of my career, but having my son give me a hug. My children never got to see me deploy. My wife, we married after my active duty time was over. We were dating while I was in active duty, but I just, they never got to see me deploy. They never had that experience of watching their daddy, get called up. And I've had 72 hours notice before for deployment. My first tour to Iraq was 72 hours notice, notified on like a Thursday.
Wow. I
think I left on a Monday morning. And all that weekend was busy working on my fire team folks and getting I think I was in like an E5 at the time, E4. And so I've got a couple of memories. Got to do some really cool stuff. Got to train with Israeli Special Forces up in Colorado, did KPAP. Worked with like escort duties, like how to escort high value targets and personnel and that kind of stuff. Had some pretty rough times. Lost a fellow patrol member. But I just getting to do things that I never dreamed that I would ever do.
Right.
Like I said, 9/11 really kind of changed the way we go about business as a military. So,
True.
but that was that was the most recent one, is having my son come up and give me a hug, and him crying after I gave my my retirement speech.
I think that's pretty awesome. That would have been a favorite moment for me too, I'm sure. I appreciate you sharing that. So now we want to kind of transition and ask you about what you do on your day job now. I gave your title, but can you tell us what that is and how you started in that line of work?
Sure. So VSO, Veteran Service Office, Veteran Service Officer. So I had retired from the military and was kind of looking for that transition for civilian employment. And I just like I said, I saw the position pop open. I think it was on Indeed maybe, and so got to meet my director, Ben. At the time, he wasn't my director. I signed up. I was the first one he interviewed. I was like, yeah, let's do this, and got hired on. And so basically what I do is I work with veterans. I work with veterans' family members, surviving spouses, current spouses, children, dependents. We're kind of a one-stop shop. And that's kind of a misnomer in the fact that we don't have a lot of the answers. A lot of times I am scrambling to find the answer because, with the military, every military member is different. Everybody has, and even as human beings, we're all different. We all have different needs at different times. And my experience with family readiness, being the non-commissioned officer in charge, the NCOIC of family readiness, really helped prepare me for the position I have now. I also have a master's in Christian education from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. I think that's helped me also in the role that I do now with the county. So, but yeah, we just basically, we do a lot of information in outreach, referrals. Of course, we do claims. We're not the VA, but we will help cross T's, dot I's, make sure that your claim meets all the elements of a good claim, and make sure that it gets to the VA and gets to the VA on the right form, filled out properly. We're kind of like your guide, your Sherpa. We want to kind of guide you through the process. It's your claim, but we try to make it as easy and simple as possible, right? Because I know you're coming out of the majority are coming into this with no knowledge. They're looking for some kind of help. They don't want some automated, they want that human contact, right? So they come into our office and that's what we do. Whether, like I said, it's surviving spouses, it's current spouses, it's dependents. There's those areas that, we know a little bit, not really. We'll probably refer you to the SME, the subject matter expert, like when it comes to education, and that kind of thing. We do a little bit with helping with, getting burial benefits and that kind of stuff. We do a lot with surviving spouses benefits, but we just have a lot of different job duties. We do a lot. We do this. We do community outreach, and we're involved in the community constantly. Like I said, we try to all the time, whether it's with the Parks and Rec or the recreational Johnson County Recreation Department, they're doing a memorial event or any kind of event. Whether it's, we spoke at local schools, we've done memorial events, we've done Vietnam veteran events. We spoke at churches, spoke at like retired school board meeting. So it's kind of whatever the community needs, whatever the veterans need, really, we're that for them. I could have someone in my office with a grieving widow working on benefits for her. And then an hour later, all of a sudden I'm going to work on a fresh claim for a veteran that did 6 years of service. So it's, we wear a lot of different hats, and we've been there, done that. I'm a combat veteran. My director, Ben, he's Army, National Guard. He's combat veteran. He's done tours. We've got, I would say, close to, at least 40 to 50 years of military experience between the two of us. James and Jenny's Marine Corps. So yeah, she gives me a hard time being Air Force, but she's Marine Corps down in Cleburne, and James is retired Air Force. So I would say we have close to 100 years of military experience between the four of us. And we have four of us. We have 2 in Cleburne and 2 in Burleson. So we kind of divide Johnson County up kind of by North Johnson County and South Johnson County. So.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back from break, I want to know when someone has a claim that they want to file, what the first step in the process is, what it looks like, what they need to do, what's on the soldier or the airman or the service member to do, and then what you do for them once, they've done some of the legwork and that needs to get done. So we'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to go to Make 22-0 again, and then we'll be back and we will talk with my special guest, AJ.
Another regular day, nobody knows. It's that time, he's coming home to them from a foreign land. He pulls up, his mama cries, looks at daddy with tears in his eyes and says, nothing feels better than this. Couple of months go by and no one sees. Something just ain't right, all he wants is peace. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free and put his mind at ease. We will help, 'cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again. He gets help, but he still feels off, season out on the TV about a dog batting said, this is a man's best friend. Whoa, so he goes one day and he picks it up. Never thought a dog could bring so much love and put a smile on his face. But he's finally found a saving grace. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free. Put his mind at ease. We will help, 'cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again. Whoa, whoa. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free. Put his mind at ease. We will help cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to MBR, and veterans have a voice here on this platform. And my special guest today is AJ Johnson, and he is with the Johnson County VSO office. He's a veteran service officer, and we've been talking to him about how the job he does and about how you can file, he'll help you file claims, or how a VSO in your state, in your county that you live in, can help you with through the process or with the process. So when somebody decides that they may have a claim to file with the VA based on some service-connected disability, or maybe a perceived connection to service, what's the first step in the process?
So when someone either calls in or walks in, there's a couple of questions that I'm asking. Number one is, okay, so when did you serve? Are you a wartime veteran? Just trying to get to like, what are you trying to claim? So, somebody calls in, they obviously are calling for a reason. So what is the need? We need to identify, like, okay, what is this veteran trying to get accomplished? And usually if it is claim related, then obviously I'm accredited with the Texas Veterans Commission, which is the big veteran service organization down here in Texas. Our regional office, one of our regional offices, is in Waco. So it's we're all four of us, Johnson County Veteran Service officers. We're all accredited with the Texas Veterans Commission. So if the veteran filed on their own, or if they've never filed, there's a form called a 2122. It basically will just let us help prepare the claim with the veteran. I never say for the veteran, but with the veteran. It gives us permission to see the veteran's file in the VA database, and just lets the VA know, hey, this veteran has agreed to let me, with the Texas Veterans Commission, to let me help him with his claim, right? The VA is very protective of people's information. They're not just going to let anybody see it, and which is good. So that's the first, usually that's usually the first form that we'll do. And then I like to do an intent to file. An intent to file is a simple form that just will lock in it just says, hey, I am a veteran and I'm planning on, I want to file a claim, and it locks in a pay date, so it's an intent to file date. The VA is always a month behind usually. So you file in like July, you're going to, if your claim is successful, if they award it, you'll get back paid till August, and you have 1 year. So intent to files are good for 1 year. So you'll have 1 year to gather your evidence, submit your evidence, and get your claim filed. And you don't say exactly anything about what specific condition you're filing for. It's just a very general form that you're just telling the VA, hey, I'm planning on filing a claim. Whether you follow through with it or not, it just lets the VA know that you're intending to file. And then we go from there. And then we talk about what you need to bring to the table as the veteran, because sometimes people, we're not McDonald's, we're not a drive-through, and you're like, hey, I'm just going to run in and get a claim done real quick. 5 minutes before I get, go pay my taxes or whatever else, go get my vehicle registration done. you number one, you have to have a service. What is your service connected disability? What condition do you think you have that was caused by an in-service event, by time in service, right? And then you need documentation. You need a current medical diagnosis of that, either through the VA or through any civilian doctor. And then, you need that nexus or that link that connects your current condition to either a series of events or an in-service event, something that happened in service to still cause an adverse kind of condition for you today, whether you've been out 5 months or whether you've been out 15 years. You need that. You need to have some kind of what has caused this, what in-service event, what series of events. I'll give you an example, like hearing loss, right? You want to file for hearing loss. I'm like, okay, well, do you have a diagnosis of hearing loss? Go to your doctor, get a diagnosis showing that you've got, hearing loss. Okay, well, you were Army infantry. Okay, wow. So you were really, you were loud noises and ordnance and all that stuff. You were firing all the time. Okay, that's a series of in-service events that probably contributed to your hearing loss. And then we submit the evidence with a claim and let the VA adjudicate, let them process that claim. And if they deny that claim, they're going to tell you why. I'll be able, it's called a rating decision narrative. They'll explain either, hey, you didn't have a diagnosis. There's no medical diagnosis. Or, look, we did not find you there was no, maybe not in your STRs, your service treatment records. There was no documentation. We just didn't find a good link between your time in service or an in-service event and your current medical condition. So either they're usually going to deny it on one of two reasons. Number one, you just don't have a current diagnosis. Or number two, there's no record. You weren't treated for it in service. There's no good in-service treatment records, or there's no link or nexus to show that it is a service-connected condition. So that's what we're going to do as far as claims go. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so if there's no treatment record for it, but okay, I got two questions. Let me just start with the first one. The first one would be, does the VA actually give you like a physical to like ascertain whether or not you have this thing, or are they only looking at the documents you provide?
So we have a thing called a fully developed claim, an FDC. All of the claims that I submit are FDCs, meaning you're going to provide that initial diagnosis, right? That's why the VA has C&P, compensation and pension exams. People get those confused. They think, I've got a compensation and pension exam to diagnose me. That's not what that is for. Once you file a claim with that evidence, the compensation and pension exam is to kind of verify the evidence that you presented, right? So you have to have that. The VA, now, unless you go to a VA clinic, if you're going to a VA clinic, you've still got that medical diagnosis. The VA just pulls those records directly. But you have to have some kind of proof. Like, if I say, oh, wow, I've got some chronic right knee pain, I think my time in service caused this. And I go file a claim. The VA says, well, you say you've got chronic knee pain, but we need a medical doctor to actually diagnose that. Right. And so that's what you want. You always, and we want to get it right the first time. We don't want to have the VA deny you and then go through the process of an appeal. We want to get it right the first time. And that's why we want a good, and it can be, if you've got hypertension, I just need a sheet of paper from your doctor that says you've got hypertension. It doesn't have to be anything too elaborate, but it needs to be a medical diagnosis.
So you said that you would have to get your paperwork so like if you were treated at a medical facility that was service facility, how do you get those medical records to like give to a civilian doctor? So just say there's not like a true diagnosis, but there's some treatment records, and then you need to get a diagnosis from like a civilian physician. How do you get those records from that treatment facility, that Army, Navy, Air treatment facility, to give to your civilian doctor so that he can see like, oh, okay, I see you've had this situation in the past and now you have this situation, and I can correlate these two to make this diagnosis?
Yeah, so I know the VA is constantly trying to improve their processes, and with I know, the Army, I think y'all went to the Genesis system way before the Air Force ever thought about it, right? So but usually when I'm dealing with claimants, it's, when you're separating from service, getting ready to separate, the military gives you those medical records, right? Now, you don't really have to have those to take to a civilian doctor. You can go to a civilian doctor and say, look, my knee's hurting. Can you just give me right?
Yeah.
The treatment records is when that service connection comes into play, not necessarily the diagnosis, right? You can have treatment records and been out of the service for 15 years. That's not a current diagnosis, right? You're still going to need to go see a doctor and get a good, that's why I say current diagnosis, because the VA wants to see how it impacts your life today, not when you were in the military 15, 20 years ago, but does it adversely impact you today? Do you still, they see that you were treated for knee pain in service, that was 15 years ago. We need a diagnosis showing that you still have that knee pain, right? So
we're going to take a quick break. So when we come back, you can finish your thoughts on that topic. But we're going to hear Mr. Red, White, and Blue by Coffee Anderson. Hold on.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey, from the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. marching line.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds on NBR, where veterans are given a voice. And tonight in studio, I have my special guest, AJ Johnson, and who is a VSO with Johnson County, Texas. We were just talking about filing claims, and I think you had a follow-up to what we were talking about.
Yes. So I think just going back to the two main points, I always try to keep it as simple as possible, because I know the veteran is probably just confused and there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And not every veteran's different. Just because your buddy may be getting some kind of disability from the VA, there's always more to the story than what you think. And, it's, we always take it from scratch. We always treat every veteran like they're unique, because they are. They're a unique human being with different needs and different issues, and their story is different, right? You can go talk to every veteran, and every veteran's got a different story, right? We all serve in the same military, but we've all had unique experiences, and we all have had different stressors and different victories and triumphs and failures and challenges, and so we always just keep it simple and say, yes, you need a current, within about a past year, a good current diagnosis for whatever you're going to file. And there are other documents that you'll need to provide, like, with PTSD, you'll provide an 0781, which is like a stressor statement on a VA form. With VA presumptives, basically a presumptive just means, hey, if you were at a certain location in a certain time frame, like Vietnam, right? Everybody knows about Agent Orange, or Vietnam veterans, or Thailand, Guam, those folks in that era. If you were stationed there at a certain location at a certain time, and you come down with like prostate cancer, for example, the VA presumes that the prostate cancer could be due to possible Agent Orange exposure. And in that case, you won't need a service connection because the VA presumes the service connection, but you still need a diagnosis. Otherwise, anyone can just say, hey, I think I've got this. But what makes you qualified to self-diagnose yourself, right? That self-diagnosis. Mm. So that's why we need medical records, and the VA, really, if it's from a VA clinic, they can pull those internally. If they're from a civilian doctor, the VA can ask the doctors for them in a certain form, but we really recommend that you bring us a hard copies, because when I submit a claim, I submit it digitally to the VA, and I submit everything together, so it's going to the VA. I mean, it takes a couple of days to get into their system. They have to make sure that it's vetted and make sure it goes to the right file, the right person. But I like to submit a complete package, right? I want everything to go with the claim, because I want to get it right the first time. I don't want to do an appeal, and I don't want the VA to send you a subsequent development letter saying, hey, we received your claim, but we still need X, Y, and Z as far as evidence goes. That it bogs down the process. It makes the process longer than what it should be. By the time you get the letter, it may be a week, 2 weeks have passed. And then by the time you respond, maybe another 2 weeks have passed. And so that's, easily a month or two can go by to extend that process of getting your claim approved. So that's why we harp on really doing the homework, making sure that we bring everything to the table that we need to bring to make the claim successful. Now, I'm not the VA. I don't decide claims. I don't process the claims. And I can't make a claim go faster or slower. but I can, at the end of the day, know, okay, we submitted a quality claim. And we just take it from there. But I'll say this, Johnson County, our Veteran Service Office, we do quality work and we care. And the VA is a big organization, and they deal with hundreds and thousands of claims. And there are days when we are busy. I mean, we are in there knocking out claims, and we try to do, my goal is a 24 to 48 hour callback. So if you call and leave a voicemail, I'm going to do my best, barring vacation or being in that office or something. You know, I've got 2 small kids. Life happens, right? We all have messy lives. But I'm going to do my best to at least respond to you, to acknowledge you, or to let you know, hey, I listened to your voicemail. I read your email. We're going to set something up. You know, it might be 2 weeks down the road, but we're going to set something up and we're going to get you taken care of. Because I'm paid by Johnson County to service Johnson County residents. If you're Tarrant County or another county, I definitely encourage you to seek out your veteran service officer and your office in that county. But for Johnson County, you know, me, Ben, Jenny, and James, we've got Johnson County covered. We live in the community. We, you know, go to church in Johnson County. My wife works in Johnson County as well. We're members of the community. We're planted down here, and so it's been an honor to serve my country, and I enjoy serving veterans. You know, so.
We definitely appreciate what you do, because, you know, some of us wouldn't make headway with the VA if it weren't for VSOs and people like you that care, that want to help make sure that those T's are dotted. I mean, I's are dotted and T's are crossed,
Right.
in all the paperwork, instead of dotting
those middle
T's, because that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, it's kind of tough being in that middle, right? Because I know sometimes we have veterans come in and they're frustrated. Maybe they're not getting the results that they want, or things aren't happening as fast as they want. And so we understand that. I see both sides of that coin. We train with the VA. We were constantly listening to virtual teleconferences with the VA. We're all accredited also with the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers, Disabled American Veterans, the DAV. So we have a lot of different cross accreditations. So we see the frustrations of the VA because we hear it, and we also see and understand the challenges of the veteran and the surviving spouse who has never been in the military, married a veteran. Maybe the veteran's passed away, or maybe they're having some health issues. Maybe they're having some financial issues. And so we, like I said, just wearing that different hat and being that resource and being that listening ear. Sometimes we just listen, you know, like the best thing I can do on a day sometimes is just keep my mouth shut and just listen to the veteran. You know, the veterans, you know, I'll do what I can. So I have a very, very small voice, and you know this from being in the military. You know, we managing the TAP program, trying to get some 06s and stuff to do their TAP. It's not an easy task. And it's, you know, I listen to the veteran and I care about the veteran, and I know their frustration, but I also want to let them see both sides of it and let them know that, hey, the VA, you know, it's such a big organization. It's not perfect, right? It never is going to be perfect. And it's not personal. I promise nobody's out to get you. It's just, there's a lot of claims, and there's only so many processors to go around, and you've got to train. We're constantly, as a veteran service officer, I am constantly training. I take an exam every year, a recertification exam every year with the Texas Veterans Commission. So we do that to be better officers for our Johnson County veterans, right? So you want us to be training and want us to be constantly trying to be up to date, because the VA changes a lot. You know, information is constantly, the VA is not a stagnant organization by any means. Things are constantly changing, right? PACT Act came out and different bills, and it's a slow process, and we understand that. but we just take it one veteran at a time, one claim at a time. And, I grew up with a warrior mentality. I work out, I lift every day, I train like a warrior. I never went to the doctor really until I was getting ready to retire. And my director at Airman Family Readiness said, "Hey, AJ, doctor, I didn't even have a PCM assigned." Like, I was like, I don't have a PCM. I don't, what is a PCM? Primary Care Manager. Like, how do I get one of those? I didn't really start seeing a doctor till I was about a year or 2 years out of retirement, when he's like, you've got to get stuff documented.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm good. I still feel like something happened, I'd have a backpack and I'd be ready to get on a plane 24 hours. My wife and kids would hate it, but I feel like I can still do it every day.
Right.
Every day I train. So yeah, we see veterans as warriors, but also see them as people, and see them as people with needs. We all got needs, right? Veteran or not.
Right.
So, and that's what we're there for. We're there. You're not a number to me. You're a person. You're a veteran with a unique story. And whether you served a year, 20, 30 years, right? I knew guys that served one, 2 years, 4 years, and they still talk about it. And you're like, how long did you serve? I did 2 years. But they're so proud of that 2 years, right? That might be their greatest accomplishment. And they're proud of that time. And so they're always kind of associated with the military, right? Like you do this podcast, Tracer Rounds, right? You
Right.
even you still want to have that fellowship. You still want to kind of give back, to be involved, right? And so that's
Yes, exactly.
kind of what we do.
Well, we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, I wanted to, I know you talked about helping surviving spouses and helping dependents, that kind of thing, but I want to talk about maybe a little bit about what other services you do besides just the VA claims for the veteran, because it sounded like you said you're doing some other things to help those other people as well. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about those too. So we're going to take just a quick break and then we'll be right back.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Make it clear that the views expressed by our host are not considered the official stance of NBR views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I'm your host, Terry, and I have my special guest, AJ, and we were talking about what he does as a VSO, or Veteran Service Officer, and we were going to talk a little bit about how the other services you provide, because we talked about how to file a claim with the VA, the forms that you need to fill out and how that process gets started, and then what you do to submit the claim on behalf of the veteran. But what other services do you offer through your office?
Like I said, we wear a lot of different hats. Claims are a good majority of what we do, right? But doing this podcast, like I said, we try to be involved with the community, right? Because that's how we get our name out there. That's how, and it's not our name, but just our services, right? We want veterans to be aware that, oh, wow, Johnson County has not one, but 2 veteran service offices, one down in Cleburne and one up in Burleson. So whoever you're closer to, we're right across from the Burleson High School up there on Elk Creek Drive in the sub courthouse. And so just to make ourselves available, so we do a lot of training with the VA, with the Texas Veterans Commission, with the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers, a lot of networking with other veteran service officers, bouncing stuff off each other, that kind of thing. And then, like I said, a lot of times I'm on the VA website, because if you're asking me about education benefits, and there's certain things that we deal with maybe very small amount of time, like, but we still will at least point you in the right direction and point you to the right person that has that expertise. But yeah, dealing with surviving spouses, a veteran might have passed away, and a lot of times it starts with, okay, were you receiving any kind of deposit from the VA? Was there anything from that said, Veteran Affairs, because they sometimes they don't know, and we try to look them up, and also we point them to the National Archives to get the veterans' service records, right? Because if we kind of have to, especially with the surviving spouses, with a veteran kind of knows, they've been there, they've done that, they know about their career. A lot of surviving spouses, they know a little bit, but you're really kind of trying to create that picture of the veteran's career. And unfortunately, you're doing it after the veteran has passed away. And so we call it dependency indemnity compensation. So when a veteran dies of a service-connected disability, when a veteran dies, the disabilities die with the veteran. And so the dependency indemnity compensation, DIC, is something that a surviving spouse may qualify for. I always say may. I don't make any promises, and everybody's different. And so it's something that they may qualify for. Burial benefits, burial allowance, something they may qualify for. Sometimes it's kind of intertwined with DFAS. If a veteran has retired from the military, right? And then I'm sure that about SBP, Survivor Benefit Plan, with the military, with DFAS. So sometimes I'm like, hey, the surviving spouse is trying to juggle Social Security. They're trying to contact the Social Security Administration for that part of it. And they might even be trying to reach out to DFAS, and I'm quick to give them the DFAS customer service number. And then they're also looking at the VA, and they don't know which is which. And sometimes the VA will send a surviving spouse a ton of forms they don't even need, but the VA wants to cover, and like, we're going to send you every form that you might need, but it's not necessarily forms that you will need. And even on specific forms, there's parts of the form that might not apply to you. And so we will sit down and we will, number one, find out what you could qualify for, and then walk you through completing those forms. Because I know, like, I've seen surviving spouses come to the office, and they have a stack of forms from the VA, like thick, this thick.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, take a deep breath. Not all this is going to apply to you, and let's just start from scratch. And sometimes that is trying to obtain service records from the National Archives, and getting, like, was he a wartime veteran? Was he or she a wartime veteran? Where did they serve? When did they serve? Were you receiving was he or she receiving compensation from the VA at the time? That kind of thing. So I get it. My grandfather, Ralph, he was 100 years old. He was a World War II vet, passed away last fall. So we understand. Like, I can imagine if my grandmother had still been alive, like her, like, where do I start? And that's how I treat people. Like, okay, like, this is my grandmother coming in, or this is my mom coming in, and my dad had passed away. Like, I'm going to treat you we're going to keep things simple as possible, because I know you got a lot of things going on. Sometimes they're still on funeral arrangements, right? It could have been weeks. And they're distraught. And I get it. Like, you're grieving. You're a grieving person. And I'm there to just try to make my part of it as simple as possible, so you can focus on all those other, with the four quadrant, the 4 priority chart. You can focus on all those other big ticket items that you need to focus on, right? So, very, very.
You mentioned
go ahead.
You mentioned your schedule. You said how many claims you do a day. How many is that about? And then how many a month do you typically do?
So it ebbs and flows as with, everything in life, but I would say on average, we're rocking, come in and depending on how many appointments I've got, 2 to 3 claims just by myself a day. So
Wow.
2 to 3 claims
That's
by
a lot of
myself. So
claims.
what's that?
That's a lot of claims. If you're doing 2 to 3 a day, then that's
Yeah.
a
And
month,
that's on
and then
average.
a
Some days
year.
are slower than others. And we
Yeah.
understand that. And then some days I sit down I'm sitting down and it's like 11:30 because I get done with the phone call and all of a sudden, like, I've got to walk in and then I've got an appointment. And a lot of times, we're dealing with sensitive information, right? So we like I said, that's another
Right.
reason why we take it one individual at a time. I'm not trying to rush anybody through. And I'm trying to make the best claim or whatever. I'm trying to come up with the best solution. We're coming up with the best solution possible for whatever need that is. And we have a lot of community resources too. Pecan Valley, 211 Texas, North Texas Serves, Vet Jobs, USDA Jobs, Cornerstone Caregiving. The list goes on and on, just kind of depending on AmeriCare, just what you're looking for. We have a lot of community resources that are affiliated with the VA, but aren't also. And that's very beneficial because if they're not affiliated with the VA or if they're local, they're not dealing with hundreds of thousands of claims, right? They're dealing with just that DFW, North Central Texas kind of area. And so there are a lot, you're going to get service. I've had someone sit down and, with 211 Texas, right, or do an application online for just some nonprofit from just some free resources. And literally they filled out an application online, getting a call in like 15 minutes. So
Wow.
It doesn't have to just be, people think veteran service officer, VA, just the VA. There's a lot of, especially in Texas. There's a lot of folks in Texas that want to help veterans, right?
That's encouraging.
Businesses, local businesses, but there's a lot of local community resources. And so we get so kind of hamstrung on just the VA, but there are so many other opportunities out there that if you don't qualify for a certain benefit with the VA, we can point you into another direction. And there's times when I've given people like several pamphlets and flyers. We constantly have community folks come through and they're constantly dropping off flyers at our offices to try to get the word out. And so, so there's times when I give people just a whole packet of information, say, okay, here's your job. Start calling these numbers, start getting on these websites if you've got computer access.
Well, that's great. I'm glad there's so many resources out there for veterans. I'm hopeful that other states are following suit to Texas and will offer a lot of different resources to veterans. Because, as times get harder and harder with more and more limited funding streams for retirement and for different things like that, it's going to be needed. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So we've got about 3 more minutes left. Is there anything else you want to put out there to kind of, just let people know, or if you want to just say what your favorite thing was or what your biggest takeaway from the military is, any of that would be perfectly fine with me.
I think sometimes I'll say 2 things. The first, veterans, you get so caught up in the rating, like what's your rating? And I got this rating. Honestly, I don't, as a veteran service officer, I'm not about just trying to increase your rating. That's not what I'm about. You have a service connected condition. We want to see the VA, approve that. Or if they deny it, they're going to tell you why. But I don't focus on ratings. I don't even try to speculate on somebody's ratings, right? I don't get into that. I just try to make the best claim possible and let the VA, that's the VA's job, is to assign those ratings, not me. I have, no control over your rating. So I want to put that out there. Like we don't focus on ratings. I will never say, hey, you're going to get this rating. I will never, ever, ever tell a veteran. I never make promises because I never know about the VA. I'm not on the other end of that computer screen. I'm not that processor. I'm not the VA. So I definitely don't ever make promises. And when I tell somebody, hey, it's probably, estimated around 6 process of claim right now for the VA, that's what I tell them, because, and anything less than that is a bonus. And if it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit longer. But, so I always like to put that out there. And then also just, it's just been an honor to serve. And I'm one of these, I like to think that my boss knows I never complain about anything. It could be 110 degrees in the office. I'm not going to say a word. I'll bring a fan. I'm very fortunate to have a job that I'm in an office, and I'm not outside. I used to do electrical work with my dad when I was a kid, and I know what it's like to be out in the field and being a DFP, a defensive fighting position, for 12 hours a day and have somebody drive by and throw an MRE at you, and have a camel spider crawl down right beside your ear. And so, and then also, being on the road and looking for IEDs and looking for bad people. So, but I've enjoyed it all. I don't regret anything at all. And it's been an honor to serve, and warrior spirit, warrior mentality every day, just trying to keep that up and just continue to just have that warrior mentality, to be a warrior deep down in my heart and soul, just to be a fighter, to fight for my family, and for my country and for my God. And so, just to be a servant and to be a warrior. And that's it.
Well, I think it's great. I appreciate your warrior ethos and ethic, and we appreciate you being on the show tonight. Thank you so much for kind of enlightening us and kind of letting us know what the process is, because I know as someone that's getting ready to retire, those are things that I need to know about. So we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions for a VSO, just Google it. Just do a Google search. That's what I did, and that's how I found AJ. And so for your state, or your county, just Google VSO and then the county, and hopefully a result will pop up and you'll find them. So thank you so much for being on the show, and Tracer Rounds is signing out.
That's the show for today, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. And remember, you can listen to us again and again. The podcast of this radio show is available right after we go off the air tonight, anywhere that you can get your podcast episodes. And thanks for joining us today. I'd like to take a moment to talk about something close to my heart. Military Broadcast Radio is doing incredible work to support our veterans and bring their voices to the world. They rely on your generous donations and your dedicated volunteer hours to make it happen. I encourage you to consider supporting NBR in any way, form that you can. Use this QR code that's attached to the picture, or you can go to our website at mbradio.us. That's Mike Bravo Radio.us to learn more about how you can donate or volunteer even just an hour a week from your home. Help make a difference in the lives of our veterans, because once again, we're all here for you and not for us. We're giving our veterans a voice.